So to solve these difficult problems, actually what we have been doing is that learning from the nature. For example, the survival of the fittest by the Herbert Spencer and the natural selection by the Charles Darwin. Sorry. So this one of them is the Herbert Simon and the other one is the Charles Darwin, who gets to be chosen by the nature. For example, let's imagine that global optimum is has the best survivability in our nature. Let's have that kind of analogy in Korean PU. Let's have that analogy to that nature. So we have so many animals and the creatures on this earth, and they are going to be chosen by the nature. And they are going to be chosen if they are really fittest, best survival in that on our earth. And that's being called the survival of the fittest and the natural selection. And who gets to be chosen? Actually someone who is the optimal in surviving the environment, like this case. So giraffe has the best survivability, one type of the best survivability. Actually because it has a long neck, right, long neck, and it can approach to the top of the trees. So it can eat grasses and leaves that the other animals doesn't touch, right? So that is one thing that makes a better survival for this creature, right? Giraffe in the forest. And how come this giraffe having this really optimized neck? It's funny, right? Optimized net. How come this giraffe have this optimized net? Actually, there is a process of this natural selection. So one generation might have a not such a long neck, but the other generation, the giraffe that has a really short neck might have died out, and only the giraffes with the longer neck has that DNA survived and came to the next generations, and only the longer ones have survived, and those ones DNA survived to the next generations, and eventually these DNAs gained really momentum and they keep surviving with the longer neck and longer neck and longer neck. Eventually what we see is that we really see this giraffe type of the long neck to make this creature most survivable in given its environment. Okay, so what is selected is actually the gene of giraffe are being selected. Gene that makes the neck longer. Okay, so that is the gene that being survived, and that's the gene is the natural selection. Okay, and if we want to apply this idea to our difficult problem, let's imagine this. So this is quite familiar picture. We had this picture in the inheritance slide, right? Probably week 2. Okay. So one thing that we can observe is that there is a DNA going on, right? This one is father, and this is son, and this father gave some gene to the next generation, and that gene is a certain shape like this, and there are in this person's DNA there must be some place that shares the same gene with their father. So actually gene is an element consisting of the genotype. Okay, and genotype is the actual identity of an entity. So, for example, we have a certain genotype of an individual. So this DNA structure is going to be the genotype. Okay. And for example, someone's if this is a person and someone's genotype is a consistent of the sequence of A, T, C, and G. These 4 letters. So that's the element of this people, right? Person or human being. Let's imagine the genotype of this search space. What makes this location distinguished with this location? What makes this location is really distinguished with this location? We have X and Y. We have X and Y. Really. So we have X and Y. This location and this location is only differ by Y values. Share the same X. Means that it shares one gene and it differentiated by the other gene, so it has a these are 2 different genotypes, but we can see that similarity and difference. For example, these 2 locations share the same Y, so it shares the one gene, but it doesn't share the other gene's value. So genotype is slightly different. Let's, for example, this location and this location is really different because that it doesn't share the X genotype, X gene, and it doesn't share the Y gene. So the genotype is really different, right? So that's the genotype of the location. So I explained gene and genotype. And phenotype is the observation of an entity. How it looks, this someone's face and this someone's face are the phenotype. Okay? So we often have less information than in genotype. We have more information in the phenotype because the phenotype is the most obvious one. Someone's face. Here, in the location-wise, phenotype is the altitude of the location, actual values. This has a secondary highest value, and around here it has the highest value, and it has certain lower value. It has certain low value, and these all values are the phenotype of this problem. Okay? So, fittest phenotype is the optimal values, and making the fittest phenotype, driving genotype, underlying genotype is the optimal solutions. Okay, so what you want to do is finding the most fittest phenotype, and if we are able to find the most fittest phenotype, we want to find out what makes this fittest phenotype, and that genotype is the driving genotype. Okay, so that is the ones that we are really focused on, and these are the analogy, and these are our actual genetic algorithm terminology. Okay, so we are going to stick to these terminologies. Okay.